Charles, thank you so much again.
Hey, thanks for having me.
And let's start by, can you explain us a little bit how you ended up being where you are now as like, well, and we'll talk about later titles, what the other thing we warm up.
It's funny. My dad is a computer guy, and he has been working with computers like in the house since I was very little. So when I was little, I had an Atari, and I played with Logo and did basic programming. And then every year he'd come back with some new hardware from work. So I had exposure pretty early. I was a theater major in university, so that's not really related to this, but I kept kind of programming and doing stuff on my own. And then I moved to Japan in 2003, and my roommate while I was there, he's now a supervisor at Animal Logic, which is funny. But he got into Maya. He would do all this weird stuff in Maya, and then I was using Lightwave and a couple of other things. And I got into Blender while I was there, and it just sort of was this fun thing that I would do on the side.
Like a
but
hobby,
then,
right?
yeah, it was just a hobby. I mean, I had done shorts in high school, and I had worked on a short in university, and I finished a short while I was in Japan, this little 30-second joke thing, but nothing, nothing professional. So I came back to Canada in 2006, and I ended up teaching English again because that's what I had done in Japan. I worked for Nova, if you remember that company.
Yeah, I think I heard about, but honestly, not so bears. I'm on Spanish also, sorry. So just
Yeah, no, it's it was a weird place to work, and they had some sort of a financial thing that happened. Somebody was stealing money, so the company just shuttered. But I met some people in Japan through that company who were doing 3D stuff, and long story short, I ended up getting into Animation Mentor in like 2008, I think.
Wow.
So I was one of the early classes and did a bunch of stuff there. And then like 6 months into that, got hired at a studio here in Toronto, a place called Red Rover, now House of Cool, I believe. And we were doing a short film thing. So like ever since then, I started as an animator, and then I'm kind of technical and I don't mind programming. And they needed, because we were using like the version of Maya that didn't have all the extra stuff. Was it Maya
LT?
Complete or whatever?
Oh no, when
this
when
is
it
a
was
long time ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't remember. Yeah, there was like
But
a few.
you remember there was like a cheap version and an expensive version.
Yeah, well, yes, exactly.
Yeah.
One was FX and the other was, I don't remember.
I think that's
but
Houdini. Yeah.
No, but
we
in
were on
Maya
the
was something similar, I think.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It had the effects stuff. That's exactly right. And the one that we had didn't for the animators. So we didn't have follicles. We couldn't build ribbons. And somebody was like, if we could only do this, it'd be much better for the animation. So I looked at it and I was like, okay, it's Python. I can do this. And I made a little Python plugin, and we used that to do the show. And then like that job went poorly, but the place after, I came in as an animator, and the rigs were a little bit rough, so I started to fix the rigs, and then I ended up kind of being more of a technical person, and that's just kind of how things have gone for me. I've sort of moved away from, I love animating, I do, but people pay you more frequently for doing technical stuff and programming. So
I think, maybe there is less people who wants to be technical or rigor, or because it's more abstract. Maybe if you say animator, modeler, rendering, it's in the front of the, like, you can see that, you can see the movement, you can see the character. And when you say like something that it's a bit behind the curtains, maybe it's easier to get the job there, because there's less people who know or want to do that, because it's, I don't know, I feel like that also, like.
Yeah. It's funny, so I've been doing this kind of stuff for like 12, 13 years now. And there's only been one period where I was out of work and could not find any jobs. That was like right before I went to Mr. X. I had been at a game company, and the game company shuttered. Both projects were canceled at the same time. And I was out of work for about 4 months. And that's the only time it's happened, but there were no jobs in town for character TDs, just period.
Wow.
But apart from that, it's been pretty okay.
Wow, that's interesting. Yeah. Yeah, in Spain, well, it was more on and off, so yeah, I don't recall to don't have work while I was doing being character TD, but being animator, because I think I have similar path to, like similar to you. Yeah, it was a bit harder for animation, I think, but unless my experience. But yeah, I guess depends of the moment, the place. It can be different. But yeah,
Toronto's kind of they do a lot of cartoons, a lot of preschool stuff, and a lot of TV stuff gets shot here. So over time, it's become also a place for TV VFX, I guess. So there's a lot of work that kind of like cycles through, but it is seasonal. So I guess at that point, it was just, everybody was between projects or what have you.
But it's interesting. So you born, I mean, in a house that was very technical, and you had your like kind of journey, and you gravitate towards technical stuff, and again, so it's kind of a full circle now.
It's funny though, because doing costume construction, my undergrad was in theater, and I mostly studied costume stuff near the end. I did supervision for shows, I sewed costumes, I put stuff together, and it's funny how I still have that in the back of my head when I'm doing cloth simulation now.
Oh yeah. So you will enjoy a lot now using like software like Marvelous Designer. You try it, that one?
I love it. I have a cut. I bought it when it was cheap last year or the year before, and it's so much fun to get stuff into place.
Yeah. I never managed to do any cloth myself. Well, I don't have any, of course, but I also get one of these licenses when it was cheap, permanent, super offer. I don't know, and I learned it. It's quite, I think it's easy to learn, and even if you don't know anything, you feel like you're a crack on like on the clothing thing. I have a friend also. She's actual like custom designer. Like she works for big brands like Zara or Mango or like this. And I show her like, look at this. Guys, you're crazy.
No, I really love it. I love that it's we actually, well, I didn't personally. I didn't do any simulation on Watchmen, but they used Marvelous to do the masks for the simulation on that for some of it. And it's very robust software. Surprising, looking at it from the outside, you think, oh, well, you might get to a certain level with it, but no, you can do a surprising amount with it at very high resolution if you're patient.
Yeah. Well, I saw this, especially like the works that was in the Alberto Mielgo shorts. Do you saw that?
Was it the Love, Death, and Robots, or?
Yeah. And that's amazing work. I think it's top notch. When I saw it, like, wow. And we had the class supervisor also in the podcast in a few episodes ago. If you want to check it out, it's very very interesting and very young also. Very. So you ended up now. So we have this kind of circle, but we was talking about titles and tags for the people and things like that, and that's something that I struggle to put like some kind of title. Sometimes you have to put it, but if you have to say like your what you do now, it's what kind of like title you would like to say, or we can also go on that tangent that we had before on the warm-up with.
No, it's a good tangent. So like right now I'm a developer. I write code 40 hours a week for my day job. That's what I do, and it's been quite satisfying. But I'm not an engineer. I'm self-taught for programming in a whole bunch of languages. Like I can do it, but I don't have the educational background, right? So working towards a place where I can call myself a developer has been it's been a series of steps, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And it's also been an interesting transition moving from, like character TD to I did a year of CG supervision,
Mm-hmm.
and then moving into sort of pipeline TD, but
Mm-hmm.
not quite, and then stepping towards this developer role. It's taken some time,
Mm-hmm.
but it was a series of steps where I had to say, okay, well, this is what I want to do at the end, and here are some possible paths. Let me see
Mm-hmm.
if I can get this title. Let me see if I can get that title.
Mm-hmm.
And it most of the time, if unless there's some tax credit reason or people think that you can't do the job, if
Mm-hmm.
you say, well, the money on the contract is great, but can I call myself X?
Yeah.
A lot of the time, people are just fine with that. They
Mm-hmm.
don't really seem to care. But for the next job that you get, that title could be very important.
Yes.
So, it's important to ask for those things. And the worst that they'll say is no, but you may get them to say yes. And then later on, you'll have had that title on that job for a year or for
Mm-hmm.
two. And then you can say, well, I was da 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 on this
Mm-hmm.
project, as
Yeah.
opposed to I was a pipeline TD or a character TD or,
Mm-hmm.
you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah, I totally agree with that. Yeah, that normally that's what happened, and yeah, if you can put that kind of title, and I had some people ask me if they can put this or this, and also the other thing, like I say, well, look, we want someone senior and that can lead from time to time projects, and he was being lead in another studio for a long time, and say, can I put in
mm-hmm,
my uh on my title I'm lead, even if I'm not leading every time? I say, yeah, sure, you can put as far as you help us and you do well. I mean, the title, I mean, it's not for him, it was important to
mm-hmm,
to to keep this like title, but for us as employees, that we need him because his knowledge, I mean, I don't care how he calls or how we put it on paper. At the end, it's the same for us, and but it's important because maybe in other company it's not gonna be the same, and they're gonna say, oh,
exactly.
why you been lead and now you senior, what happened? It's like you be demoted
Mm-hmm.
or something. It's That's also like
Yeah.
weird, but
Or
yeah.
I was here for 5 years
Yeah.
and I started as a junior and then I went to intermediate or whatever.
Hmm.
But then it just says intermediate for 4 years.
Yeah.
But really, you were doing all kinds of really great work. You were leading, you were
Yeah.
training people, you were helping with interviews, you were working on pitch projects.
Yes.
Those are senior things. So even if you don't feel like you need it, then somebody else, like you're saying, they might look at it and say, well, you were only an intermediate for 4 years. How come you were
Hmm.
never a senior?
Yeah.
You know, it's
Yeah.
stupid, but it
Yeah,
happens.
yeah, it's always, it's like what I say, like the title, it's sometimes that even if you are like kind of a technical developer or person who can do certain technical creative things, I would like to say like there's a like technical creative person, or
Mhm.
something that it's, or that globes more than just very specific. So I can be creative to find
Mhm.
solutions, and my tools to find these solutions creatively are
Mhm.
code, are tools, or that you can develop and create. That's interesting. Just going a little back, I want to ask you something, and I'm very curious on that. So what is the thing that you like the most to being a developer, to like to write code and to create new tools and new workflows, or
Hmm. Um, I don't think anybody's ever asked me that. Um, it's I like the challenge of it.
mm-hmm.
I tend to get bored very quickly. Once I've figured something out, then I
uh,
get bored, and I hate being bored.
uh,
And that's pretty much what happened with me getting into being more of a technical artist.
mm-hmm.
Is that I would try and fix something, and then I'd say, okay, well, it's fixed, and now I have nothing else to do. So
Mm.
I'd stick my nose into something else. um,
Yeah.
and yeah, being a developer and having new challenges, I don't get bored.
Mm-hmm.
There's always something else that I can work on or some new thing to learn. But also there's the aspect of when you give software to a user or to a whole bunch of users,
Mm-hmm.
then you get all this feedback of things that maybe you didn't think of that are really great ideas, and they lead you down these other paths of things to develop that are really fun, or just random things to learn. Like I went on a kick for a number of years on learning math for curves and applying that to spines and things like that, because the animators wanted to have a spine that would stretch, but when you compress it in, it would not like compress down. It would stay at that minimum length. And this is, I mean, years and years ago, but I looked at it, and I looked at the IK solver in Maya, the spline IK, and how it worked and a bunch of other stuff, and I thought, you know, this should be solvable. This should be doable in Maya nodes. And I went down this long path, and it was something that took a long time, but it was very satisfying. And I find that with code, it's the same way. Like, you look at these two things that should not work together, or some problem that you want to solve, and you think, oh, this should work. And you go down these paths, and sometimes you fail. But if you just keep working at it, eventually you can find a nice solution. And when you get to that point, I find it very rewarding.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I think it's same feeling, and it's very rewarding, and sometimes it's strange for me, because sometimes I always try to do maybe like I always have one like little like short film project that never advanced, and I always get excuses to get new tools to do the project. So and then I don't do the project, but I do new stuff. And when I carve time for this, I found more like something in the zone or something. I don't know how to say it. Like it's like like you say, like learning something and try to like a puzzle to solve, and it's very unique each time. While if you're trying to do a short film, you end up doing something that of course is not the same, but if you animate shot after shot after shot, it looks more repetitive, even the acting is different or so on, than if you code and you solve one problem, you have it. You solve the other problem, you have it. You normally always there is many ways to solve one single project, but normally you solve it once and you go for next different challenge.
Yeah, I get that. I have this short idea that I want to do at some point. I'm putting it off because life is just so busy right now, and I know that it would take a very like concerted effort to get it done. But the way that it's set up, it has a bunch of stuff in it that I want to learn. So every few shots, there's this like little technical thing that I don't know how to do right now. And I have a vague idea of maybe which direction I have to go. So that will be the fun part of it. But like for me personally, animation is a hard thing, which it sounds weird because that's what I started doing, but I can't animate without 100% of my focus on it. So when I animate, like just the hours vanish, everything kind of goes away, and it's just me and flipping back and forth, and I find it very interesting. And every shot is a series of problems as well, in a way. Even if you've animated, this person walking or this fall or this cup pickup before, the choices you make change it just enough that it makes this time entirely new. Or if it's not happening, then you can go in and make it entirely new, and that's exciting too. So yeah, someday in the future, I have a short idea. I have some game stuff that I'd like to try. In my spare time, I tinker away on like random computer graphics coding stuff, which then I go down the rabbit hole of build systems, because that's the thing that always bothers me. And
that's funny, like on the free time, or it's like something that's kind of how to say, like in the free time, it's always never is free time, it's always something to do or learn. So
exactly.
Just carving time from one thing to do another thing, and we call it free time because we just take it out from other.
I don't need to sleep, it's all right.
That's okay. No, but that's, and also for me it's the same. For instance, the short that I'm trying to do for maybe 2 years now, I don't know, it's embarrassing. I was thinking even to start another YouTube channel just to embarrass me enough to continue doing it.
It's not a bad idea.
Maybe I should do it. The thing is like, yeah, I tried to put challenges, and I did learn a lot. Like, for instance, this Marvelous Designer thing I learned was for this short film, so I never
cool.
managed to do something worth. And I like was this year when it was in March, maybe in June, I think I did this online 1 month learning or something like that class for learn music, electronic music.
Oh, cool. Okay.
And I think it was the teacher is it's called Juan. It's a famous YouTuber. It's from Toronto, I think. The guy, Asian guy. He has like 2 million subscribers, and the classes from him, it's very very good. I mean, it's not. It does some feedback, but not like live. It's just pre-recorded everything, of course. But it was really good, and I learned how to do electronic music only for the short film, so I can do my sounds on the film. I never finished this film, but now I know another skill that probably is useless for me.
You have to send me that link. No, I actually have a lot of music in my background. I played violin for 10 years.
Oh wow.
And then I broke my wrists and I had to quit. But then I moved to saxophone. You won't know it now from the way my voice sounds because I'm kind of congested, but I used to sing a little bit. I've tried guitar. I know a little bit of piano, not very good, but I can pluck stuff out.
Wow.
And I have Ableton Live. I love playing with that when I have free time. So yeah, I have for the short, I want to do the music as well. I have an idea of what it sounds like, and I've been kind of collecting found sounds, and I'm going to try to just like mess with them in a what do you call it? Grain table synthesis. Taking it, chopping it up, and putting it all over the place. I like making sounds sound awful, but then bringing it back and mixing them together to make it sound interesting.
Yeah, I think this class was really really cool. At the first, I mean, I know nothing. My dad and my brother, they know how to play several instruments, and they had been always very close to music. But I was like, I mean, I don't know. I was just computer and games and animation. So I guess that's. So I started from zero, like borderline, like barely I know what is music, and yeah, in a few weeks, I mean, it's not great. I mean, the music I did, I think it's just, but you can learn in the first week or week and a half. You do like kind of the basics with some music theory and just with some digital instruments on Ableton Live. And the other one, the next week or the week after, it's you do with all the samples. So with a little recorder, record sounds on your, and then you learn how to process the sounds and to create some like sounds that you can use and create another song. And the third, let's say, part, it's to create like a pop song, like with singing, and then I say no, I didn't do that part. I just focus on the again.
No, you know
like
what?
Repeating.
So no, we've established that part of this is me learning that I need to embarrass you to do stuff, and I think that you need to be embarrassed to sing a pop song. I think we need to hear this.
No, you don't. I mean, the next time you visit Japan, we go karaoke together, and then we have this conversation again, and probably you're gonna brew me like, please don't do it again.
I'll tell you, that's one thing I miss about Japan: karaoke, the izakayas, and I really miss 24-hour video game stores.
They exist. I didn't know.
Oh man, I lived. So I worked in Kawagoe-shi, which is in Saitama, and I lived in a place called Tsurusei. Tsurusei, right across the street, literally from our apartment, was a 24-hour video game shop. And they would get the new releases at midnight, so we'd stay up and walk over there and buy the latest PSP game, and yeah, it was pretty fun.
Man, no, I mean, I used to play more, but now, yeah, I don't know if you have free times to game, but I really don't. I need to carve some.
It's hard.
At some point, yeah. Maybe it's Cyberpunk. Yeah. I'm waiting for that one. Maybe I will make a big like black hole of time when it's released for only for that one, and then I quit because I regret so much on all the time wasted in like,
well, it's like my mother used to say that playing video games was a waste of time when I was a kid, and it's funny because I went from playing video games to kind of making my own video games with like if you've ever used this is very old, but there was a port of GCC to DOS called DJGPP, and that's what they used to make Quake for DOS, like way back in the day. And I used it and this library called Allegro, and I made like a little Zelda clone, and I was so happy with myself. I made all the graphics in true space, and
but yeah, sorry, I don't think gaming is a waste of time. It's just like
so like
me investing too much time on
right?
that thing while I want to do other things that supposedly are more priority for myself. But it depends everyone. But yeah, gaming is cool. I mean, and I miss it, but yeah.
Well, when COVID hit, I ended up playing a lot of Animal Crossing, and I didn't have the energy or the desire really to work on my personal stuff. It was there's a lot of stuff that apart from COVID that I've been going through personally, and it's just been kind of a rough couple of years. But it was nice because Animal Crossing was just this simple little thing that you could do for an hour or two a day or what have you. Or like I'd wake up in the night not able to sleep, and I'd play Animal Crossing for half an hour, and it'd relax me. And then there was a day where I was like, okay, I'm feeling okay. And I put it aside. And I haven't gone back to it since probably August because I've been just working on personal stuff.
Oh, nice.
So
yeah, that's therapeutic also. Yeah, I know some people had also like rough times, and they have the games to help them to digest, to have the time to process in the back of his brain.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
Background processing, very technical.
Yeah. But actually, I my son's birthday is in a couple of weeks now, and we will get him Animal Crossing. Here in Japan, it's Dobutsu no Mori.
Yeah, I actually had the first one on GameCube the first time I was in Japan.
So it's not a new game, man. Shame on me. I thought
it's very old. Yeah.
No,
I think the first one was actually on N64. But there was a GameCube one. It took up a whole memory card. It was great. To share with your friends, you had to bring your memory card over to their house and put in both, and then your character could visit their island. Like it was crazy, but it was really fun.
Well, I was like Sega guy and then PC guy, so I have excuse. I never had Nintendo, so only the Game Boy, the old one.
Oh God! Like just on my desk right now, I've got this old Game Boy.
But this is the color one.
I've got my 3DS. I've got. I can't. Oh no, here it is. I have my Game Boy Advance. And this one, I replaced the battery on it, so it's like
it's all good. Need parts, just let me know. I can grab, like on Akihabara, a bunch of these, like junk.
You know what? I might take
send
you up on
back.
that because I want to.
Yeah, I can go one day and grab a bunch. Like just me, like that money, and I will grab it and send you in a package, and you can pull out.
Oh, that's
stuff.
Amazing. No, actually, I know we're off on a tangent, but like I have this bag of cartridges. I got on eBay. I went on and I found just this. It was insane. This deal. It was 8 cartridges for $1, and it's like these old Japanese RPGs. This one's Dragon Quest 3.
Do you need the adapter for that? Because
no, this plays just fine. And they didn't have the
what do you call it? Region or zones.
Yeah, region locking. Yeah. The Game Boy never had that. And it's great because like when I was first learning Japanese, I mostly played PS1 games like RPGs and stuff. And I still will try to do that kind of practice. So like speaking of lack of free time, I have Final Fantasy 15 on the Xbox One, and I have it set to Japanese mode.
Oh wow!
So it takes me like 3 times as long. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's actually great. I mean that's I should do more of that because my Japanese is still terrible. It's I mean being here 6 years and
do what I did. Watch Naruto.
Yeah. or read. I should
700
read more.
episodes, you will learn a lot of Japanese. Most of it bad, but
but worse, and I'm gonna use it in the wrong situation. That is even worse.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's so much fun. But yeah, side projects, learning with these projects is important, and to have fun from time to time also. Not only burn out with projects, but to balance. Yeah, I think that's a lesson to take for myself also. The only thing I do, honestly, it's I try to watch a lot of movies all I can, and binge watch some TV series also. I think that's
I haven't had the time for that. We don't have a dishwasher in our house, so my TV time is I have my iPad next to the sink, and while I'm washing dishes, I'll watch an episode of something.
I do the same.
Yeah.
We do have dishwasher, but it's very small in Japan here.
Mm-hmm.
And I have like it's a Kindle Fire 10-inch.
Yeah.
I put it there, and I have my my Netflix. Well, I put it the Google Store thing, so you can put also Disney Plus on YouTube, and so it's where I watch stuff there.
Yeah, no, there isn't really enough time.
Yeah.
I think back to when I was even when I was doing Animation Mentor, on the weekends I'd spend like 40 hours between Saturday and Sunday working on my homework. And I'd have Lost on the other screen. Just letting it go by because it was the only way to do it. But now there's just I don't do anything where I can do it sort of with half a brain.
No,
you're not splining or fixing or whatever. It's just there's just not enough time.
If it's automatic things like dishwashing or things like that, you can do it.
Yeah, exactly.
But if it's like anything that needs cognitive focus on what you're doing, for me it's impossible. Even with music, we was talking before. Like I if I put music, we sometimes we put this kind of background ambient noise or things that it's more like kind of a wall for the noise environment in the office if there's people around you or things like that, than just to listen to the music. If I really like the music, I'm gonna listen to the music. I'm gonna pay attention to the music. So it should be something that it's in between. It's comfortable, you like it, but no. For instance, no lyrics. If they have lyrics, that's over.
I have a hard time with lyrics because a lot of times I'll want to know what they're saying because I find the words very nice. So I tend to listen to a lot of really, really doomy sludge metal kind of stuff because the voice is so distorted that you basically can't understand it. And then it just becomes this extra instrument. And I find that really like back to the music thing, I find that really interesting. That you can have a person speaking, but it's not a person speaking anymore. It's just percussion,
Yeah.
It's super neat.
It's very, this is very guttural from here. I don't know how they managed to do it without breaking his...
I don't know either. But what's crazier is there's some bands where they do that. They'll really down deep, and then they'll switch in the next bar to really high melodic stuff.
Yeah.
And I have no idea how anybody can do that.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess they're professionals on his task or his work. That's
I guess
what
so.
we call professional person. That's that's very interesting. We're going into huge tangents here. I'm just trying to but
you get me on Game Boy. I'll talk for days. It's terrible.
But do you want okay, I'm just trying to check it out here, or little outline. So going back maybe to more topics of the podcast. So one thing that I wanted to ask you to talk, it's because you've been working from home before the pandemic, like by choice for told me like 3 years now, I think. Or more. So how do you navigate working from home, and you have family also? And kids, small kids. So how do you? I would like. I mean, I'm personally interested because I'm doing that half time now, or been doing it for this month, and I also have family and so on. So I'm always interested how the people navigate these situations and how they can find the time to do everything. Or if they find
It's funny, like no, but work from home actually creates time. So I don't know like what your commute is like.
in 1 hour.
When pardon me. Yeah, 1 hour it's pretty rough, you know. When I most places that I've worked at have been in downtown Toronto, and I've tended to be more on the West End. So even though like right now from my house to the office where I work currently, it's like 17 kilometers or something.
Nice.
But whether you drive it, whether you take the public transit, no matter how you try to get there, it takes between an hour and an hour and a half, depending on traffic. And people tell me that I'm crazy when I say this, but it's like, you know, I've done this. I've tried multiple routes through the city. It never seems to make a difference. So I would be going to work. When I was the CG supervisor, we were working with a company in Indonesia. So I would have to go to work at like 7 o'clock in the morning for these calls, and then you'd work all day, and then you'd come home. So I wouldn't even see my family until, you know, 7 or 8 at night or whatever it was. And you know, the kids are almost asleep. My wife, we barely have time to talk, and it's pretty wearing on the family. So when my son was almost born, my wife and I were talking about me spending more time at home, and seeing if I could transition to work from home, because you know, I write code or I make rigs or what have you, and I don't need to be there. So I ended up, it was right around like I had just kind of finished a tangent, and we worked on next gen at that point, and I had a gap, so I ended up going to a place called Intelligent Creatures, and they're now Mars. When I signed on, I was like, I would love to work for you guys, but I also want to work from home. Is there a way to make this work? We talked about it, and eventually we came to an agreement. So after I was done my paternity leave, I would go back like a day a week or what have you, and that eventually became kind of when I was needed. They would bring me in. They'd say, "Oh, can you come in Friday?" Yeah, sure, I can come in Friday. Do you want the whole day? Do you want me half a day? And so, you know, all those hour to an hour and a half chunks at the beginning of the day, at the end of the day, they're gone. You know, I get to make my daughter breakfast, or sit and have coffee with my wife in the morning before I, you know, do my commute downstairs to work. And when I'm done for the day, I just go upstairs. You know, one thing that's nice is that I do have a space in the basement. I have my table, I have my 2 computers and all the Game Boys and stuff. And so I'm not mixing up the workspace with other parts of my life, if that makes sense.
Yes.
I know a lot of people will work in their bedroom or on the kitchen table, and I find that kind of creates that mix. But if you have a space that's just for work, and then you leave that space and go do stuff elsewhere in the house with your family, then that helps. And maybe the first 6 months, one thing I found that really helped too was just getting up and getting showered and getting dressed every day, and not working in pajamas. I know a lot of people are joking about that with COVID, but like I put on my jeans every day, and I put on a nice shirt and whatever else, or, you know, as nice as this is. And
you feel good.
I find that it helps. Yeah, you feel good, but you also feel like there's like a psychological aspect of making a workspace, you know?
Yeah, I understand that. For me, yeah, here when we started with the COVID, of course, my house it's very small one. It's in Japan, so and at the beginning I had we it's a new house we did, and we have a nice counter on the living room that we prepared for have like for kids to study, or my computer and so on. I have it there at the beginning when we started. Then when COVID hit and we start working from home, and it was really hard to work there. So ended up like creating this room. So this was kind of like a big room, and we split it. Was already ready to split the room. So we split it. It's very small. It's like, if you know Japan measures, it's 4 tatamis. That's the reason, because I have all the acoustic like sponges here, because the echo here is so bad, because it's.
No, I was wondering if you were at work at your office, because I'm noticing all of this acoustic padding on the wall there. Yeah.
No, it's yeah. So we did that. We put the wall, and now I have this space here that it's just for work, so it's much better, honestly, to create this separation. And when I'm downstairs, I don't bring even my phone. I just try to avoid to carry anything that can take me the time there. But it's still hard, because you always like run a little bit, check, and the hours are longer also, like especially.
Well, I'm locking my hours. Like if work asks me to do overtime, then I do overtime. But I try not to go past, because I think that all of us people who work in this industry, we want to finish what we started. We want to make sure that everything is good. We want to make sure that we get as much done. And when you're working at home and you don't have that cutoff, that can bleed over. You can do an extra half an hour, extra hour.
Yes.
And it happens to me too, but I'm trying to be very mindful of that. I try to keep my hours to working hours. And then, like you're saying, you leave your phone. I don't check my email. I leave all of that stuff on the table until the next day when I come back to it.
Yeah.
At least I try.
Yeah. Like I will say the same. I try. Sometimes it's not easy to do it. Sorry. But yeah, here is same thing. For instance, my office, it's really good because we have like flexible time. No, normally we start at 11 and we finish at 8. That's the the official regular, but there's some people who get earlier. I was one of them that tried to get earlier so I can leave earlier, and some people get later. And when you're at home and with a Slack or other chats and everything,
it extends the day.
Yeah, even if you don't want, you maybe, for instance, if I don't close all my tabs on Chrome and by any reason I see a message from a colleague asking something, just 5 minutes, I'm just gonna reply him so he can work, because I know he's working even if I finish my day. So it's not that easy to cut. Even I know, I mean, I should not be looking at that, but by any reason, if I see it, what are you gonna do? No, now I know it is asking. So.
Well, I read this book years ago. It's called "The Way We're Working Isn't Working," and I think that's what it's called. The bottom line was that we're more efficient in small bursts, like all humans. It's just kind of how we're made, and the people that are at the highest part of their game, like violinists or athletes or what have you, they will do like a crazy amount of whatever for 90 minutes, and then they'll take a break. And then they'll do another 90 minutes a little later in the day, and they'll take a break. And the idea of the book was you want to try to optimize your workday or whatever you're doing for those optimal periods, and then to make sure that you put everything down and take that break, because without the break, your productivity actually goes down and it drops precipitously after time. So he did things like, reducing the number of notifications. Every time your email bell dings, that takes you out of what you're doing because you think, oh, I have to go back. He also talked about checking your email only twice a day. So I do like, first thing in the morning, lunch, and 4 o'clock. And I don't really check my email outside of those times. For like, we're not on Slack, we're on Teams at work. So when I'm done with my day and I've pushed my code or what have you, I make notes of things I want to attack tomorrow. I put my notes into my little to-do program, and then I close Teams, like I quit it out. And Teams on my phone doesn't send me the notifications at that time. It's I try to make sure that because a lot of it's just like evolution. We can't not look at things.
Yeah.
But if you stop those things from talking to you, then they're not there, kind of thing.
Yeah, that's smart. I should do the same, honestly. The problem we have email, but almost everything goes for in our company. We use Rocket Chat, that it's kind of Slack, and of course the chat. This expected like immediate response.
Yeah.
It's not like email, and it's something that I don't do it that often, but sometimes I just close the application for 1 hour or two, and I will reopen. So I am sure that I'm not like by mistake just switching windows because I'm working something else, just see something pop in, or even I have all the notifications. By default, I deactivate all the notifications always. I always, if I check something, it's because I say it. Like I check specifically, but if I do it by mistake, that is also happening. So it doesn't work.
No, I mean, I'm a Mac person. I work on a Mac all the time. I have an iPad, I have an iPhone. Their notification system is not as granular, I think, as Android. But over the years, I've just gotten to the point where so many things want your attention. And attention it's at a premium. You know, it's one of the things that you can't really pay for or buy back if you lose it. So I've tried to, I used to have a lot more notifications and a lot more messages popping up and everything else. And I've just kind of cut all that out because just for me personally, I find that there's a significant cost for even hearing the bell and just looking to see which app it is, not even reading the message, but seeing, oh, is that Slack? Is that my email? So now, like on my phone, almost nothing comes up except for messages, like Apple messages. And the only people who talk to me on that are my dad and my wife.
Yeah.
So
same for me.
You know, then I know it's important, you know?
Yeah, exactly. In my case, it's WhatsApp, and I only have it with close friends and family. So I know if that and it's vibration. I don't have sound at all.
Yeah, and exactly.
But yeah, that's definitely like no notifications. And also that's something I did. I quit recently Twitter. I found myself it was a great resource for information, but it was like this gambling machine that you find sometimes something interesting, but the majority of the time you spend like going up and down. I don't know if you have it, but I just got down.
It's the only one I have.
Yeah, wait. So I just deleted and I deleted. I just no regrets now. I think I already passed the 30 days that they give you. If you don't reopen it again, it's gonna be completely deleted. And I passed the threshold, and that's it. It's on. So, and it was like 8 years or something, the account, and I don't have Facebook anywhere. So.
No, I deleted my Facebook account over 10 years ago, I think. Because Facebook is weird. Like people expect you to like things and to go and look at things and to do all this stuff that requires a lot of time that I didn't want to spend. And then I was getting into all these fights with people. They'd be like, why didn't you like my pictures?
Oh,
I
really?
didn't see your pictures. Well, why weren't you on Facebook? I don't know. Or, you know, you missed my birthday. Oh, really? When was your birthday? You know, and I'm terrible at that, but it's funny. I deleted my Facebook account and the next year, I think one person remembered my birthday. So I mean, I don't know, it's this weird sinkhole, and I stay on Twitter because there are some really interesting tech links. Like my account, I have it mostly just to retweet stuff that I find interesting and to like be silly and laugh at stuff. I follow people who are pretty funny.
Yeah, it was the same for me, but I just found that it was like kind of an addiction, like if you can say. Like I opened to check, and I check it several times a day, and maybe it's 10-15 minutes when you realize opening a couple of links, and there's some, I mean, good information. I'm not saying it was like, but at this I just make some numbers. This is maybe taking 1 hour easily if I don't be careful a day, and it's out. And now I kept the only social network I kept was the LinkedIn, because I think this one, it has some value for networking and work. Yeah. So I'm not going there.
I don't count that one. It's you have to sort of be on that if you want to get hired at certain places. Like I'm finding some job applications you actually have to log in with LinkedIn,
Mm-hmm.
and then
Oh.
they'll bring all your data in. So
Mm.
it's um, that one I don't really count as much. The other thing is like LinkedIn, I don't find is as dingy as the other ones. It's not trying to send you a bunch of information as
Mm-hmm.
much. Or
Mm.
maybe I just have it locked down. I don't know.
Yeah, it tries, but yeah, it's easy. Just don't send me anything, and
Yeah.
I will check it out from time to time. The only thing I do have, it's when it's a direct message, I receive an email, so I go
Yeah.
and I check.
Same.
But that's the only thing. But they're tricky because they don't tell you the message. In other applications, for
You
instance,
have to
Twitter,
go in.
you have to go
Yeah.
in, and that's like, but well, that's and it's the only network that this pay account. So you
Hmm.
have LinkedIn, and you can almost everybody has the free account, but there is a premium account or pay account that have more uh, things, and that for me represents that we are not the business. The businesses they have not that much advertisement, or there's actually I don't think they have it. It's more like the business model is not the users itself, but
Yeah.
the
It's the access to the graphs. Like I find that a lot of recruiters,
mm-hmm.
they don't even bother looking for anything except going through LinkedIn.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I think like Microsoft's last earnings call, I think they were
Mm-hmm.
talking about how LinkedIn was a big part of their increase in revenue.
Mm-hmm.
And I have to guess that that's because with the way that the world is,
Mm-hmm.
people can't just go and have
Yeah,
in-person interviews. So LinkedIn became this way to find
yeah,
workers remotely as well,
yes.
and that's only going to increase. I don't think that the I think that this change is going to be permanent, and
Mm-hmm.
that a lot of people who've left and don't want to come into the office are going to continue not wanting to
Yeah,
come into the office because there's just so many benefits, like being able to hang out with your family, or walk the dog in the middle of the day. You know,
yeah.
um,
Well, yeah.
I
Well,
do that at lunchtime sometimes.
I don't have dog, but yeah, I totally agree with that. And yeah, and this, I think I I don't know where I listened that or I read it like something. If you don't pay him for the service, you are the service or something like that,
Yeah,
or something. So basically, it's not you pay him, means you are his way to get money from selling you to others. So
yeah. And in some cases, I don't mind. Like Gmail,
yeah.
as annoyed as I can be by it, it's a
Mm-hmm.
pretty darn good email service,
Yeah.
and it keeps a lot of the spam down. I have a lot of my accounts through that, so
Mm,
it's okay. Like
yeah.
I don't mind them scanning my stuff to send me ads, although I have a ton of ad blocker
Mm-hmm.
software on my machine. But for something like Facebook, one of the other reasons I deleted it was I wasn't getting anything out of it.
Mm,
I wasn't making connections with people. It was mostly just causing problems.
mm-hmm.
Whereas with Twitter, yes, they're advertising to me, but I do tend to see some things that I'm interested in or that make me laugh,
Mm-hmm.
or just funny gifs or what have you. So like
Mm-hmm.
I feel like the benefit is there, or
Mm-hmm.
enough benefit that I haven't gotten to the point where I want to delete it yet. You know.
Yeah, well, and actually, I say a lie. I do have Instagram, but I barely. I just put work in progress of my short film,
Hmm.
and I barely check anything there. So it's
Yeah, I never got on the Instagram train.
yeah,
I don't know. I have ArtStation, but I don't have anything posted there because,
it's our station, but it's
um,
very niche. Very, I think that's
yeah,
it's good because it's
I really
that.
like it. Like it's a
Oh
nice
yeah,
portfolio system.
exactly.
I You were talking about doing a music class. I did a like a Coursera class on screenplay writing at one
Mm-hmm.
point, and it helped me set goals to finish the script for this pilot TV show that I'm working on.
Mm-hmm.
And I started doing a model on that, and eventually, at some point, again with all the free time,
Mm-hmm.
I learned
Oh,
ZBrush. I got into it,
I will
and
check that. I will
once that's all
search
done, then
for
I'm
you.
going to put it up on ArtStation. But I have nothing there right now.
Oh, it's not there, so it's empty. It's
No,
like
no,
mine.
it's just this empty, embarrassing portfolio that I use to track other people who
Uh,
inspire me.
yeah, so same as me. It's that
Yeah,
one.
someday.
Yeah, the yeah, it's month learn. I will. I mean, if you're interested on this class, it's on the It's
I'll ping you after.
monthly learning or learn monthly what was something like that. It's just 1 month class, and it's a structure each day what you need to do, and it's nice because it puts you in this kind of like you need to do this homework every day to go with the class. So it's not like something that you take and you can be more flexible. It's this month and you do it in this month in these days, and be ready to put like a couple of hours per day on that. And yeah, that's very, I mean, I really like it, the method, and the class was great for me personally. I don't know if maybe someone else like you that knows more music than me and come on, but
I don't, people will often say like oh, I already know this, I'm not going to watch this thing on it. But I find that even if you know stuff, other people know the same thing differently.
Oh yeah.
So sometimes I will watch things that, you know, it's something that I know, but I want to see how that person tackled the problem. Rigging is a really great topic on that. Like the way that people will solve, for example, putting guide systems in, doing setups, what level they will make things for granularity. You know, do you build a whole module? Do you build the ARM? Do you build the FK chain and the IK chain and then put them together? Like, how's all that working? And the math behind it, like Raf's Cultive Rig, he did a Mel expression for his IK solver, right? But he didn't do the math that I would have expected. He did, you know, 2 cosines basically to get the angles on things, and just rotated the bones. That was like, oh wow, that's crazy. That's the most optimized way to do this, and it's, you know, a handful of lines of code. Whereas you know, I wrote a solver, but I did it with quaternions and vectors and stuff like that, and I have these things spinning around in world space, and sure, it works. But now I kind of at some point want to look at just using 2 cosines to do the same thing. You know,
it's the solver that we have probably vendoring in MGear release. You know that?
Yeah.
It's
that was kind of exciting.
Yeah, we have yours. We have Sergey also the math nodes vendor there, and we compile for each version for each Maya release and OS and package with MGear. So. Yeah. And I have to do a company using your solver. Sorry, I just put it there. You know, like, oh, there's a nice solver. I try it with demo scene or somewhere. I think it was a demo scene somewhere that you put it with the solver, and I found what this is great. I'm just gonna do something with this, and I didn't. Sorry,
no, it's so in my personal reading system, I have a limb class, and that class uses, you know, standard Maya IK handles and things like that, and then I have a version that uses that node, and it's one of those situations where I got bored. I was actually at Nelvana, which is a big producer of children's cartoons in Canada.
Yeah, it's you know, worldwide.
Oh, you know them? Yeah.
Oh, of course, Nelvana with the bear.
Okay.
The bear. No, it's the
the bear. Yeah, of course. So I did this show called Ranger Rob.
I don't know that one. Sorry, maybe.
Yeah, I don't know how popular it is outside of like Canada and maybe the UK. It was a co-production. But I built this brand new rigging system while I was there from the ground up. And we got it to a point where everything was running and the characters were built and things were fine. And then we started looking at parallel optimization for a parallel eval.
Yeah.
And, you know, we put the characters in Maya 2016 and the frame rate doubled. I thought, oh, this is great. Maybe we can look for some other things. So I started optimizing, and then I looked at the IK and it was taking a long time, and I thought, what if I make a node?
Yeah.
What if I just collapse all this? And I kind of tinkered around on it for a bit, and then I threw it in, and it was like a 10 frame per second increase because we were replacing 4 limb setups, right?
Yeah.
And then I optimized it more for the show after Top Wing. It was on Nickelodeon for a bit. And yeah, it was great. We had these body rigs that would run at like 70 frames a second, and it was very satisfying.
Yeah. Yeah, talking about this topic, like was last week, yeah, and you know, because the people don't like to have custom nodes on the rigs, especially Maya. I don't want my client, or if in 10 years I have to open it, and well, anyway, so they don't want these custom nodes that save a lot of performance, but a lot. And we have this all the time in gear because we use almost all the I did one components that don't use it because one client didn't want to have it, but it's not maintained because was some issues there and I didn't want to spend the time there. But they keep going, and probably we will do it these vanilla Maya nodes in some point. But the rigs that we have, when it came the parallel thing, it was already in place, everything, and it took advantage of all this. And last week, a friend, he was testing some stuff for us on the studio. We give to him like one production rig, like super heavy, like crazy amount of detail because in anime style 3D you have controls for everything because it needs to be all fake, all handmade animated, so it's very like maybe 800 controls on the body, things like crazy. And he has a Threadripper, not the top one, but like almost. And he told me like, I'm surprised because this rig was 15 frames on my machine and he has 70 on his, and he's taking 80% of sustained processor for one character. So one character is almost taking advantage of 80%, or not almost, but 80% of the processor. And that's super well optimized for what he told me. It's like 80% is quite good for something that can take advantage of all the cores that I have. I mean, not many applications. And when I see this, I say, man, you don't need even to cache. With just Threadrippers, you can run several characters real time and massive characters, like I'm talking about heavy stuff. And yeah, it all thanks to having these nodes that are very granular and pack everything, and it's easy to parallelize. If you have flat hierarchy, it takes everything and
yeah, that was the first thing I ended up changing was unparenting, making things into a flat hierarchy. That made a big difference. Like I think I'm working on a class on parallel optimization now.
Oh no, I didn't. Like
oh yeah, no, I'm like through 4 of the videos out of probably 8 or 9 at this point.
Where?
And I'm just kind of
in YouTube. You have a YouTube channel? Or?
No, it'll be a for pay thing.
Oh,
so
well, yeah, send me the link. So I will link it on the podcast when we release it.
That'd be great.
Yeah, I'm interested.
But yeah, no, there's a lot of things that hold back the old rigs. That I spent maybe 2 years kind of researching on the side while I was doing production and trying to figure out ways to do things faster. And it was also nice because I'm in Toronto and Autodesk is in Toronto. So when we started using parallel eval at Nelvana, I don't think anybody else was. And they were very interested to hear our experience. And we were able to get a little bit of information and to optimize a little bit better. When I went to Industrial Brothers after that, it was sort of the same thing. We were the only studio, I think, in town at the time using Maya 2017. And it was my choice that I pushed for, and it was a great decision because parallel eval in that version was better and had they had fixed a lot of the issues from the initial version. So we were able to benefit from that, and we were also able to benefit from the fact that we were right next to Autodesk and we were able to ask them for things,
That's great. So. And yeah, it's very cool. Like the I do have this because the parallel and now we have with the 2020 this playback cache that is great because you don't need that huge power machine to get this high speeds playback. But at the same time, if you have these new Threadrippers or maybe the latest Ryzen, I don't know how to pronounce, the 5000 that is gonna come now, or the top of the last ones, you probably can run in parallel, and it also have advantages because you don't need that much RAM, or also the cache, even it's fast, but it takes some seconds to fill. So that's very interesting.
Yeah, I think that if you're talking about performance in modern times, it's part cache and part optimizing the heck out of it. And people might say, well, I have this caching now, so my rigs can run at 1 frame per second. That's fine. But that manipulation speed is still important for the animators. And the faster it can calculate there, the faster the cache can get filled for the whole frame range anyway. So I don't actually run with caching on my machine at home because I find that it makes Maya really unusable, especially while I'm rigging.
Yeah.
Yeah, if, like you're saying, if the character runs at least 24 frames a second, then for me, I don't need the caching. I'd rather just be able to go in and have that fast manipulation, you know?
Yes. And also there is, because everything has its own advantages and disadvantages. Like, for instance, if you take the parallel is great, but if you do in shot sculpting and you have a blend shape node that is ingesting like one new blend shape, let's say per frame or for each frames, like each number of frames, because parallel needs to pre-evaluate on the evaluation manager all your rig structure to know how to parallelize. Every time do you set a new blend shape that changes the structure of your rig, so means each frame it needs to re-evaluate this evaluation manager. So this little lag that you have in the first frame normally when you load the rig, that is when the evaluator manager reads and specifies how it's going to be parallelized on the graph, you change it. So when you shot the sculpt, it's a really bad idea to have a parallel and you need to change to DG, because DG is not going to evaluate. It's going to be slower, but it's going to be less taxing because you don't need to reevaluate this every single frame because you change this. So it's better parallel, yes, unless you do shot sculpting or other stacks that make it slower.
It depends on how you shot sculpt, though. Like if you're doing if you're using actual blend shape nodes to do your shot sculpting, I can understand how that might be a thing. But like for me, I've done like a lot of finaling, and I tend to use clusters more, which are GPU approved. So I will apply a cluster to the area that I want, and then I'll just like a rigid bind.
Yeah, so both cluster or how it's called, soft mod, Modifier. Yeah, things like that.
So I'll do that, but I also will use the tweak nodes, because so tweak deformers have worked on the GPU since the original parallel eval release, I think, since 2016, and most people don't usually use them or they delete them. But if you add tweak nodes and set that tweak node as the current tweak from your mesh, and then you can key the envelope on and off and on and off and on and off, and then that will stay on the GPU. So you can do a lot of shot sculpting sort of stuff with the regular sculpting tools, but it stays in that tweak node. And then if you want to delete the tweak node, you can just kill that one deformer.
Oh, okay, I will check that. Interesting. It's thank you for the tip. But yeah, I was talking more like not using the GPU. I'm talking just the evaluation manager, the thing that sets ready everything for the parallelization. So, but yeah, definitely, I will check. Maybe
yeah, graph edits can be tricky. I mean, the one thing you can do with that though, like if you key it so that there's two separate keys on it, then it will stay in the evaluation. So even if you're changing it on a frame by frame basis, then that'll work. With blend shapes, I don't know, but I think with the tweak node, you could maybe like set a key at 0 on the frame before and then set a key at 1 on the current frame, and then that would force it to be evaluated and to stay in the graph. There's probably some other way to do it with controller nodes as well. I'd have to look. Wow. It's an interesting idea. I'm going to write that one down actually.
I have to check that also. But yeah, for my experience, it was like that. Maybe because I'm using like the blend shapes, and every time you add a new blend shape on the blend shape node, it was triggering again this reevaluation. And talking about these topics, and maybe a little on a tangent, because I wanted to ask you for Blender stuff. So I think it's
ask away.
I was checking the time. We hit 1 hour now. A little more. It's okay for you to continue a little bit, or how you feel?
Yeah, go for it.
Right, great. Yeah. So well, there is 2 topics I want to talk here. First one, it's Blender for developers. How it is, how it feels to develop for Blender. That's something that I'm very keen to know. And the other part, the second part, and I just ask now so we can maybe go straight from one to another. It's for this topic of rigging evaluation and how it works. Where are the, if you know, where are the pitfalls in Blender? Because I was saying before we start recording, like, for what I tested and what I heard, Blender, it's not the really fast evaluating rigs. It's my biggest, like, showstopper for me to try to learn Blender, because I know it's gonna be hard sell for animators, unless on my studio that they use to Maya or Motion Builder, that is even faster in the manipulation, to say, okay, let's use Blender, because they're gonna say the first thing, oh, this is not playing fast enough. So what's the advantage? It's just saving money for the studio. It's not like, or I don't know what to say. It's not gonna be worth, like, it's better to pay license for software that allow you to work faster, so at the end it's cheaper, or then get some software that it's great, but for the, I'm talking specifically for animation, I don't want to mislead anybody in other areas, it's gonna slow down the animator, so the cost on production, because the salaries, there's more time to animate, it's gonna go up. So these two, sorry, big long questions, but
no,
I'll let you talk now.
They're good questions. Yeah, in terms of being a developer, Blender's got a high learning cost. That initial thing of getting in, it's actually much better than it used to be. It used to be kind of tricky to get it building, and tricky to get the dependencies, tricky to make everything work together. They've spent a lot of time at the Blender Foundation, at least it feels like this from the outside, trying to make that first step easier. So now you can just, git clone the Blender source code, and you run, I think, make update. And as long as you have everything that you need installed, it'll download the external dependencies, and it'll make sure you have everything you need to build it. You can type make release, and it will build a release version of Blender, and you'll have it. It'll be right there next to your folder. You can run it right away. That's in a lot of open source projects, that first step is often the hardest in my experience. You look at, for example, USD. When USD came out a few years ago, just building it, just getting it to build was a pain in the butt. Same for Alembic, honestly, initially. And over time, those things got better, right? Now you can build it pretty quickly. But once you've got it built and you know your toolchain is fine, you can build these binaries that work, then you've got to figure out where stuff is. And Blender has hundreds of separate C files and C++ files written by hundreds of different developers, different patches at different times. So sometimes you can search by one name in one place, it's a different name in a different place. But there are these kind of general design things that once you're in it for a while, you'll start to see, you start to recognize. And I guess if people want to get started, one of the easiest things to do is to make a new mesh modifier, like a deformer in Maya. You have to edit maybe 8 or 10 files to make that happen. But then once it's done, it pops up, and you can put your mesh in it. You can have it deform the mesh and spit out the mesh on the other side. It's fairly simple. If you want to go deeper than that, just be prepared for, a long learning process, I guess.
Deep dive.
Yeah, the biggest problem with the Blender code base is that it's very interconnected. You can't really work on, like, if I wanted to add a new object type, I can't just add it in this file and maybe register it in this file. A new type can take 40 or 50 files, lots and lots of edits. And you have to sort of know where all those things are. The only real way to do that is to maybe find an older commit that has an example where somebody did this, and then to follow what they've done. So you have to be sort of good with Git. You have to be okay with understanding patches and things like that, being able to check out and look at the changes, that sort of a thing.
I see.
So it can be tricky. But then, again, once it's in there, the nice thing about this is that everything gets put into the same binary. You get a lot of optimization that way. And you're able to make changes in a very large application and to see how that application does things. And there are some really neat tricks in there to learn. And if you're a C++ programmer, it's a great way to sort of understand how C++ and C can interop.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of spots where that barrier gets crossed in the source code. I don't know if that answers your question.
Yeah, I think unless it makes a visual map in my mind of like that it's yeah, there's something that how is this design like this right now? It's something that it's been inherited from original design and built on that, so this is hundreds of files on that, or it's this kind of like a standard design for software where you do these interconnections. Because if I think like on my poor developer mind of simple stuff in Python, the I will put like these libraries or these modules that have some kind of like consistency on. If I need a, for instance, like a modifier, I will have like this top class that has all the basics for create a modifier, and you will inherit that class to start a new modifier, like like Maya. And I know Maya also have this like specific way for how it was designed back then, with you have the object and you have the function that are separated, and you need to combine. So that's one like way, I think, or how I say, like design, no, like it's been that by design. So in Blender it's the same. It's been designed like this to have this kind of connections, like, or this amount of files. It's some advantage on that, or?
There's no advantage in my mind. There was talk many years ago of the fact that Blender is so interconnected. Being open source, it's very difficult to pull a piece out of Blender and use it in some other program. So there is kind of that advantage, even though it's GPL3, so nobody would want to touch it for other commercial uses, I think. You can't really just extract something from it. But at the same time, that does mean that a new developer is going to take more time getting up to speed. Like one thing that, so you're talking about the Maya M object versus the function sets. In Maya, everything, subclasses M object in some way, shape, or form. In Blender, you have subclasses, but they're not subclasses because it's C. So at the top of a struct, you might have something called struct ID, and those are sort of the master M object style things. Everything hangs off of those. So you define all these different data structures in Blender through something called DNA, and that's all the structs. But then DNA gets read, and it writes out basically the struct name of the member, the offset in memory, and a whole bunch of other stuff, the type. And those then get used in a system called RNA, which allows you to give nice mappings for these things. So if I have a struct that has a position, and every time the position gets changed, I want to update something else inside the struct, you can make a callback in RNA. You can also give it a nice name. So I might call it like fuzzy position in the C struct, but over here it's just position when I look at the Python side. And the mapping between all this stuff also allows you to serialize easily. So once you add a structure to Blender, you don't have to worry about it getting saved into the format. If it's fairly simple, it will just save. And the format itself has notes at the end of what is in the file, what kinds of structures are there, and what those structures hold. So you can rebuild the entire file. I actually wrote a thing to open up Blender files from pure Python. And then you could introspect in and grab out the camera data and stuff like that. So it's, I don't know, one of the biggest things I think that if you're a C++ programmer and you've mostly worked with DCC APIs where there's a lot of subclassing, Blender's not about subclassing. It's mostly about the C style thing of casting. So you have subclasses, but you're casting to different things, and the ID type is at the top. So you always have that piece that you can rely on, but then you just recast to other things. And
yeah, I understand, because if the base was C, and well, little I know, it's like C++ was basically taking the base of C and moving to object-oriented programming at the beginning. So basically C is not object-oriented language. So the base is there, so it makes sense that it's not that object oriented later on the rest of the application. And so that means that, for instance, I heard from people like Blender has the Python API, but doesn't have the C++ API. And do you think this is one of the reasons because it doesn't have it, because it can be very complex to create an API for an application that it's already based on C and mix it like that?
I'm making this face because I've had this conversation with a lot of people, and I think that there's a very simple solution to the Blender API issue. So it doesn't have a C++ API or a C API. The API is you have the source code, change the source code, rebuild the program. And that is somewhat of a high bar for a lot of people. Whereas, with Maya, you can make a small plugin and load it and unload it and reload it and make those changes while the program is running. You can make plugins in Blender, but you have to do it yourself. So when I was working on NextGen, I did a small test to see if I could make a plugin that would load meshes or modify meshes through the Modifier stack. And it wasn't all that much work, honestly. But then we come to the issue of licensing. So if I write a plugin that uses Blender's GPL3 licensed stuff, then my plugin has to be GPL3. And I think that scares a lot of studios. If they wanted to solve that, they could have a plugin API that was MIT licensed, just the API. Blender would use that API, and the plugin would use that API, but the plugin would not actually use Blender stuff. So it'd sort of be like maybe like OpenFX on Nuke or those compositing programs where you have like this plugin format that other things know how to read. So Blender would learn how to read that plugin format, but that plugin format would be agnostic.
I see.
I think at that point you could do it, but they're not interested in that. They have very consistently rejected. There used to be plugins, actually. There used to be texture plugins in the 2.4 series.
And they removed it.
You could make your own procedural textures, and there was something else too. But they stripped all that out in 2.5 because they say, we have Python and we have the source code. So you don't need plugins. But I do think that studios would be more interested in it if you could do plugins. And it would also help with third-party support. I think a lot of third parties are avoiding it because they know that if they make a plugin or a thing for it, they have to release a source code. And then other people can just copy it for free. So it does become a tricky balance, providing people with a way to make money,
Yeah, I understand that, and I have listened some podcasts, some interviews with Tom Rosendahl, and I read it also the explanation on the licensing on Blender. For me, I don't care because the for instance for MGear, if it's already MIT, I just don't care, honestly. But it's true that, I mean, if this is Studio, if you read the GPL license, basically if you keep your plugin internally, you don't release it, you don't sell it, you don't have to release your source code. It
comes with distribution.
Yeah, exactly. It's
when
you
distribution is but distribution is legally kind of I'm not a lawyer, but it's a weird topic. So the question is, if you have a freelancer, so for example, let's say that you wanted to hire somebody in South America to work on your show in Japan, and you sent them a custom build of Blender. Is that distribution? Do you need to send them the source code for what you've built? And then once they have it, are they able to distribute it again? Are they part of your company? Is that source code covered under the NDA? Or like, how does that work? So that's the point where it starts to get a little bit tricky. And it's tricky as well if you're putting things onto the cloud. If you want to distribute software in the cloud and like you wanted to make like a cloud instance or Linux box or something on AWS, and you're putting software there, how does that count in terms of distribution? Does a user who logs into the AWS thing, should they have access to the source code at that point? I don't think any of these things have been tested.
Yeah, because for me, distribution is like if you want to sell it or you want to, to anybody that pay or go there, download it. That's distribution. If you keep it internally, like not public, let's say, for me that's not what I was thinking. Distribution is more like internal deployment thing, even if it's one
I
guy in South
agree.
America.
Yeah.
But
But
yeah,
I mean, like, let's
I'm
say
the
that
lawyer.
at your company, like now you guys are we're all working from home.
Yeah.
If we have mostly internal stuff and everybody's working on the machines at work, it's one thing. But then one of your employees says, "Hey, can I install your cut of Blender on my machine at home?"
Mm-hmm.
Is
Yeah.
that distribution? Do
Yeah,
they
I don't
need a
know.
copy of the source code? I don't know. And that's the thing, is that I think companies have been shying away from testing the legality of this,
Mm.
because once it's tested, once there's a precedent, then we have to follow it. So
Mm.
instead, people are just sidestepping it and avoiding it entirely. And
Mm-hmm.
um, it's interesting to me that in the last 2 years, so many large companies like Ubisoft and like Tangent and other places have really been pushing for Blender and pushing for open source sharing and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe this will be a different landscape in a few years. But at the moment, a lot of it's kind of legally nebulous. Nobody really
Yeah.
wants to stick their hands in. So
Yeah, it's everybody's waiting. Okay, let's see who is the first who creates a precedent where it goes to tribunals or something, and there's a precedent that, okay, so that's it, let's go.
yep.
That's interesting in a way. But yeah, that's yeah, indeed, it's a tricky. And I always think like it's unfair in a way for like the people who is doing like these fantastic plugins that they sell on the Blender market or other places, Gumroad and things like that, because the business model, I mean, even Blender is free as a foundation and so on, they have a business model that is being open source, and they get money for being open source, and this is the business model. But if you are like small like uh, not business, I will say like a small developer that has this little plugin that if he can sell it and maintain and have his a little, maybe you can make live from here, or maybe a couple of plugins you can. But if you are
Mm-hmm.
being forced, because your business model is not to be open source, you cannot expect to get money for a little tool that you're doing inside another application and get the living there, because
Yeah.
sadly there is no money in open source unless, yeah, of course, Blender or things like that. But I'm talking for experience. There in my project, it's not that money at all. I'm not.
Well, so
So
the money in Blender,
it's
like the studios that are paying Blender right now are not paying for Blender.
mm-hmm.
They are paying basically for support
Mm-hmm.
or to fund new features
Mm-hmm.
or to get bugs fixed.
Mm-hmm.
But they're not paying for the software itself. They're paying for a service of some kind, in my
Yeah.
opinion.
Yeah.
So the I agree with you. Like the Blender market, there is some really fantastic work on there. Some great plugins, things that extend Blender in ways that you would not expect possible from
Yeah.
Python. But then you look at the license and it's all GPL.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's kind of harrowing for somebody who spends all this time working on this thing and then can't lock it down.
Mm-hmm.
There, I personally, I would like to speak to a lawyer at some point about this. I don't think that the plugins distributed as Python source necessarily need to be GPL.
Mm-hmm.
I think that since you're not distributing Blender with it, you should be able to distribute that source code on its own under a different license, and that shouldn't be an issue. But again, I'm not a lawyer. I know that some people have compiled binaries. They'll have the plugin, and then the plugin will download binaries, or you'll have to download binaries separately. So you have the Python here, and then like some compiled DLL over here. You install them both. You tell the plugin where you can find that, and then that kind of sidesteps the whole legal thing. But this is stuff that, like you're saying, an independent developer doesn't want to deal with and shouldn't have to deal with.
Yeah.
And it's a tricky thing to navigate.
Yeah, I wish, like for the people that's developing this, that they feel a bit more like protected somehow. I don't know how it can be that or not. I guess they're doing well, and the people is doing that, and the people is honest, I think, and they, even they don't get one license, they don't put it next day on his Dropbox and share or say, hey, get it. So there is also this honesty of the people, that it's saving everybody. But at the same time, I feel like it's a bit like unbalanced, somehow, I will say, or yeah, that the people is doing these great plugins that don't have a little more protection because the business model that it's not the same. It's simple as that, and if you need to be also like give and receive, no? So
well, I like the aspect of the Blender community that everybody likes to share.
Yeah.
That's been part of the community from the beginning, and I think that's wonderful. And there's a lot of great content out there that's only there because the community is a sharing community. But like you're saying, people need to be able to make a living and need to be able to at least somewhat protect their interests. So I don't think that a developer who wants to make things for Blender should be expected to share the source code. If they want to, that's their choice, and more power to them. If they want to add back to that community, I think that's wonderful. But I also think that, for example, the way that the Blender extensions have been done for Redshift and PRMan and things like that, they've gone in and they've modified the base program, but it still talks to this external binary that does the rendering and then brings things back because of the licensing, right? Like you can't just embed it. That's a lot of extra work. And that work could be going towards making new features instead of trying to figure out the boundary between two different licensed binaries. And that's also not something that's very simple for a lot of people to do. That I'm not maybe friends, I wouldn't say, but I know a number of very talented, very intelligent programmers who could sit down and hack these things out easily. But there are a lot of people out there for whom Blender is their first DCC, maybe their first programming experience, maybe they're just getting into stuff, and they just don't know how to do these things. And because of that limitation, perhaps they might not try to do something, whereas if they hadn't had that limitation, they might have made something really great. And the community would have benefited. So I don't know where the balance is, but I'm excited for somebody to figure it out. Even if it is like this third-party plugin architecture that I think is where things need to go. If somebody could make it and have Blender and Maya load the same deformer, I think that would be fantastic.
I hope too. But this it's always when you mix like facts, I mean, because it goes to maybe also politics, this kind of topics sometimes. Like it's very I just want to make the plugin and just charge something and do it and have an extra revenue, and you feel like this, and even it's not gonna happen anything, but like you say, some people will stop just for the hustle to know if this is legal or not, or if it is it's gonna be like distributed later and I cannot protect my IP, or if I have some IP, like for instance like IP, I don't know if it's a word, like, but let's say you have some technology that you develop it that does something nice in 3D or whatever, and you put it in Maya, you make it a commercial, and you want to put it in Blender to have, but because you have this kind of thing, so you keep it. You don't, I'm not gonna risk there to have to force my IP that I work maybe 5 years to develop this algorithm that do
exactly.
this and this, and that's the sad part. But
and then the answer is going to be, well, don't put it in Blender. But the Blender community is a great community to serve us. The users are great. Everybody's very both active and very excited about new developments. So you might want to target that community, and then there's that question of how do I do that while protecting my interests. But it's not just that either. It's also how do I target new platforms. For example, there was a Blender build for a while, I think, that was on Android. You could actually load it on an Android tablet and do stuff with it. It was neat. You can't currently put Blender on the Apple Asset Store because even if it's free, Apple, and even if you're distributing the sources, Apple will still put more DRM around the binary so that it doesn't get copied. And that is a violation of the GPL. You're not supposed to lock it down anymore. But also, because of the legality of things, larger companies like Apple, and I think the game console makers as well, as far as I understand it, you can't use GPL code on their platforms. I've never made a game for a game console, so I can't say for sure, but all these closed markets where they add DRM to protect their interests, you can't use a GPL source code on there. So I love Quake, the original Quake, and I love the community. And there are people who are making very interesting things with the old Quake engine ported forwards, you know. But if you want to take a game that's made with that and put it onto iOS, you can't. There's no way without rewriting the entire engine or porting it to a different engine. And that's pretty sad. It's stuff like that that I don't know that there's a solution for in the short term, unless at some point, if the GPL were extended with GPL4 and there was an exemption for app stores, you know, as long as you're releasing your sources, you can release the binaries to an app store as MIT.
Yeah, maybe put the link somewhere else, and well.
Yeah. But it needs to be navigated.
Yeah, it's a kind of labyrinth, probably. And the other topic on Blender, this is also very interesting. It's the like what we was talking, like performance, and because I think honestly I really like Blender. I didn't use it that much. Normally I have installed the latest version and I toy around sometimes for modeling or just to, but not really like I cannot do anything worth with that. But for me the big jump will be when like this kind of rigging performance thing that I know it's bottlenecking there. It's it's somehow changed it, improved it, maybe new version, I don't know. But you was telling me that there is also way, I mean there is probably things that I tried with some rigs that I get it around, that maybe it's not also the best way to know how far you can push Blender on that area, no? That's
there are definitely things. One thing I've seen is the mask modifier, which allows you to sort of temporarily delete faces. A Maya user might come and look at this and say, okay, well, I have my skin deformation, my armature deformation, and then I'm going to hide these faces with the mask modifier after. And we found that the mask modifier can be extremely slow, and it can be, just removing that by itself can make a huge difference in frame rate. And people don't understand that in Blender you don't have to worry about just going in and deleting faces or inserting an edge loop. You can do that while the rig is built, and it's fine. So if you want to remove those faces, the simpler thing to do instead of using mask is just duplicate the mesh, hide the original, delete the faces. That's it.
That's
it. The armature works. It'll be fine. So if you have arms and legs behind pants and they're passing through the pants, just go in and delete the faces. It's okay. Cache it out, export it, you'll be fine. Also, drivers tend to be fairly slow. So if you haven't tried a recent version like 2.90, 2.91, I don't know what the current one is because I kind of run from the Git build, but
2.90, the latest stable one, or 2.91?
So one of the two of those.
I don't recall. Yeah, I think it's 2.9 something. The one, and I think one is beta and 2 is alpha, something like that. 2.9
something like
is
that.
Alpha, maybe. Yeah, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I would try one of those because in the 2.8.0 series they were using their own threading stuff, and I did some testing on that and noticed that it would never use your threads. There was some sort of an odd issue where 2 threads would be super high, and then 2 more threads would be somewhat high, and then every other thread on your computer would just be sitting there sucking on its thumb. So we looked at this a lot, and then we were talking about maybe switching to something, and the Blender Foundation ended up replacing their own threading implementation with TBB. If you use one of the TBB builds, which I think all the 2.9.0 builds are now, the threading utilization is much better. It will actually spread out your character to all your cores as much as possible.
Interesting.
But with that, you also have 2 different types of drivers, and the drivers are what we would use for doing a direct connection in Maya, like a plug connection. There's 2 types of drivers. One is sort of the simple expression, and those thread. And then there's also the Python expression, and those don't seem to thread. I think that those are just a threading bottleneck with as it would normally be with Python, because of the global interpreter lock. a lot of the older rigs use expressions that are fairly complicated and might use Python, like the Python math library or something like that. As soon as that happens, it drops into the Python version of a driver, and it's very slow.
Yeah.
If you use the simple drivers and try to get your math working in that way, it's much faster. The best thing to do is to not use drivers. And that sounds crazy for a Maya user, but you can actually do a large portion of a rig without any drivers, and then only use drivers for certain things at the end, like IKFK blending and stuff like that. So I would recommend looking at building something with no drivers at all, and just see how far you can get doing that, because you'd be surprised at how fast the system can run by itself without any of that extra stuff getting in the way. Just put the armature on there by itself, and a mesh, whatever, and build a small character. It's pretty good. The other thing is that if you're not targeting video games, the bendy bones can make a huge difference, because you don't have to have as many bones or as much weight painting for twist or for curvature.
Yeah.
So like, if you have one of those rubber hose elbows, you can bend it out very easily, and there's only 2 bones and 2 sets of weight maps. But you can have it be very, very curvy. You get into an S shape.
I know that, but I didn't know the difference when you export. I thought when you export it's gonna get the bendy divisions, but actually not. It's internal to Blender. So
yes,
if you want to create a rig for games, you need to create one joint per joint thing.
Yeah.
That's
now, that being said, if you're building a game rig, the constraints, I can't remember which version this was done in, but the constraints all respect bendy bones now. So if you want to have bones that follow a bendy bone, you can constrain them to the bendy bone, and they will aim in the same way. So you can do that instead and still have a simple setup in terms of not having to bring in a curve or something. And then I guess the only other thing to think about is to try to keep everything inside the same armature. I know in the old Blender, if you wanted to do a spine with the curve IK, you'd have to kind of go out and come back in with a different armature because of the way the evaluation system worked. I think now you can constrain the curve, and the bones sort of operate as their own nodes in the evaluation system in the depth graph. So it's not as bad, but you still have to be careful going outside of the armature object into other objects. And generally the fastest thing to do is try to keep everything inside and just use helper bones. You can throw as many bones as you want at the rig. There was a recent fix where I think if you hit 4,000 bones or 4,096 bones, after that it would have trouble. But I think they fixed that recently. So just throw bones at the problem, add transforms, and you'll be surprised what you can do with the tools that are there.
Yeah, that's great. It's maybe I did. My God, maybe 10 years ago, I did a class with Daniel Martinez Lara and his school back in Barcelona.
The Pepe Land.
Yeah. I did did a few workshops about rigging in Blender back. I don't remember the year, but yeah, like 10 years ago, 2011 maybe, or something like that. And I forget everything. I don't remember a single thing I learned there.
A lot of it's changed too. There are some better ways to do certain kinds of things. They've added a lot of features. So I mean, I'd say that now is a good time to get it back into it. It's a lot's changed from the 2.4 days to 2.5 days even.
Yeah, I'm need to carve some time. Maybe to get the tutorials from Pierrick. Pierrick. It looks like
he did that demon one, right?
Yeah, looks like this. Yeah. One of the best tutorials that you can get to learn Blender from scratch on rigging. And yeah, definitely. I just need to put it on the pile of to do when
it's always about time.
Free time. Yep. That's yeah. We live in the. Have you read Momo, the book?
No.
Momo and the it's a very famous novel. The Momo. I don't know. I guess it's Momo in English also. The name of the book.
Is it a Spanish book or?
Oh no! I don't know.
Japanese?
No, it's I don't know from where is it. It's Momo. It's a little girl that fights against the gray man that smokes the time of the other people in the cigars.
No, I don't know this one at all.
Okay,
Sounds
sorry.
crazy.
So it's a to go too much in a tangent to explain that, but I will send you the link later so you
Yeah,
curious
please.
about. It's a very interesting book about how you spend your time on life, and it's a metaphor of a very beautiful one. And yeah, so it's
time
the
is
gray man.
the thing that I value the most now.
Yeah, it's
And I think people, I think especially like younger people don't value their time as much, and it's a pretty typical thing to say for I just turned 40.
Oh.
So people say, as you get older you value it more, but it's not just about having free time and spending your time on projects or things like that. It's also how much of that time you're giving to other people and how much you're being compensated for it. And to remember, like, if you have a skill, make sure you get paid.
Yes.
And make sure you get paid well, and look at other people and what they're doing and how much, somebody else might ask for double what you're asking for the same amount of time, and they get it because they asked for it.
Yeah, not only to get more money, but to value your time in other, like, for instance, here in Japan, it's a culture of work and work many hours. And
zangyo.
Yeah, and the people, unless where I work, my experience is that people really really work hours and really work hard. There's some always in every place that they are warming the seat basically, but I would say the majority that I ever met, there's really hard workers and really really many hours. And there is a not also you need to value your time, and you need to, but the how I will say this, there is some, like, if you don't, I mean, if you systematically work more, everything will work, everything will account, taking in account that you're gonna. And I'm totally on the, like, if it's needed punctually to do it, because I mean we work in an industry that we don't make like mechanical things that takes 3 seconds or 2 minutes to do each piece exactly the same. It's an artistic medium where it's hard to balance the time with, I mean, the schedulings and everything. It's really hard to evaluate always the time. So I understand in some points it's needed to work more if for any reason it was a deviation between the planning and the schedule that we already had. But when this is the norm, that it's every single day, and I think there is a tendency, not only here but in our industry, that these crunch times becomes like the regular thing almost in some situations. I see. And and I see somewhere in, not here in Japan, I like job offers on in the States and other places, that they say that the base is 45 hours or things like that, so they count one hour more per day as a default that is included in your salary or things like that. So
here too, the max is 44 that you can get paid before overtime kicks in. So even if you're doing that 44 hours instead of 40, those extra 4 are only paid at regular salary hours, and then over that gets paid extra. And that's just a law that people take into account. But I've been signed on to places where they say, no, you're contracted to 44 hours a week. Even if they don't use it, they can always ask for it, and they can do that without any kind of approval process, right?
Absolutely. There's these kind of things that you need to evaluate and try to respect that. I think it's important. And when you're young, maybe I don't care, I'm having fun here working, but when you start have family and things,
it's different.
the responsibilities and everything, it's harder to get. I mean, it's not like I don't enjoy my work to doing it. It's the problem because I enjoy too much.
Your
so,
priorities shift. You know?
Yeah, exactly.
I think I actually hear my daughter right now. She's
Okay,
finally up.
so it's maybe it's a good moment to finish. I don't know. I think we touched almost all the bullet points that I took note here. So it was quite not so like big tangents this time. So I'm really glad we kept it. But yeah, also we had a really nice tangents that I'm really I really enjoy it. Honestly, it was a.
Thank you. No, thank you for having me. This was a great conversation, and I'm gonna take you up on the Game Boy stuff.
Oh yeah, yeah. Honestly, I'm saying I don't mind to go anytime to. I mean, if you send me every week, I will say. But if you wanted to, I make a couple of trips to Akihabara, and it's been recorded, and everybody will know
yes,
now.
I will hold you to this.
I can get some like geeky stuff there. It's always fun to go there, and yeah, I have so much fun just looking at the junk.
Yeah,
last time I went,
it's a great place.
I carry like a tower, old HP workstation home, like for $60 or something. Like I have it.
Yep.
I hope don't
I bought so many games while I was there. It's not even funny. And I finished every single game in that Sega Land.
Oh wow!
I don't know if it's still there, but it was
like
everything you could finish, I finished.
There is a Sega park still there. I think when you
yeah,
go out
like
of the station, almost in front.
Yeah.
Went with my son there to play the Taiko.
The Taiko no Tatsujin.
Yeah, that's a great one. I love it. Well, thank you so much.
No, thank you very much.
Have a nice day there.
You too.
Starting.
Bye.
Bye.